This is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update for September 6th, 10 a.m. Here's the graphical tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center. We have Hermine here that developed yesterday as Tropical Depression number 10 is now Tropical Storm Hermine, and this could actually get up to hurricane status before it makes landfall. We have former Tropical Storm Gaston out here east of the Leeward Islands, and we have a very strong tropical wave coming off Africa right now that we're going to have to watch closely going into next week. Well, let's get to the first of details on Tropical Storm Hermine because that's of most concern right now. This is the HurTrack program showing the approach of Tropical Storm Hermine, rather. This will be tomorrow in the early morning hours. Then the system moves in around 4 to 5 o'clock in the morning in northeastern Mexico. And this could be up near Brownsville, Texas. In fact, if we continue to put this in motion, you'll see that in the early morning tomorrow around 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, it passes just to the southwest of Brownsville, Texas. That's our current feature at Hurricane City, where you can zoom in and get all the local information from Brownsville as this comes in. But this system is wrapping up in a hurry. Let me show you a floater loop of this system. And there it is. This system is really cranking up in a hurry, and it's a good thing that this is close to the shore and it's going to move inland, because if this had any time over the open Gulf of Mexico heading toward the northern Gulf, for example, this could really crank up and become a significant hurricane. However, there is some dry air in the north, to the north of this system, that may feed into the system eventually. Right now it's in the ideal situation for development, and this will move into Mexico more than likely as a hurricane. The way this thing is strengthening here, this could very well ramp up in a hurry. A Hurricane Hunter aircraft is en route right now, so we'll know when they get in there if this is a rapidly developing situation. But this system is really cranking up. Upper level support, upper level outflow is perfect. There's no wind shear. Dry air is to the north, not involved in the system, so everything is go for development on this system. Here are the watches from the official watches and warnings from the National Hurricane Center. We have tropical storm warnings from Brownsville, Texas, here all the way up to just south of Corpus Christi, up to Baffin Bay here. And this is all for Kennedy County and the surrounding areas. Pretty sparsely populated area. Now, northern Mexico, this is the same area that was affected by Hurricane Alex early in the hurricane season. They have tropical storm warnings out as well down there. Here are the models on the system. Again, northwest towards the Mexico-Texas border. All of these models pretty much keep this as a tropical storm. There's a strong tropical storm status, but the intensity models are showing something a little bit different. I'll show you that in just a minute. But basically, northwest, the models are tightly clustered, and whenever you see the models tightly clustered, you know that the track is pretty much dead on, that they're high confidence in the model data. The outlier here is the no gaps. It shoots it off to the east, and the no gaps has always been a wild model, and you just got to take that for what it is. Here's all the past storms in history that were in the same exact position as this. Tropical Storm Hermine. We had Beulah back in 1967. Now, this made landfall as a Category 5 hurricane near Brownsville, but Beulah developed way further east of the Leeward and Windward Islands, moved through the Caribbean, strengthened, hit the Yucatan, and then came up near Brownsville, Texas. Edith, in 1971, tropical storm, went due west toward La Pesca, and 1925, unnamed tropical storm came in about where they're expecting Tropical Storm Hermine to come in. So that's the history of all the systems that were in this same exact position at the same time of the year between September 5th and September 7th, and there's only 3 of them. Now here's the best performing model. Let me zoom in on this. This is the AP12 Aviation Ensemble model, and so far this is off by about 61 miles at 30 hours, and it's the best performer of all the track models so far, and this takes it right into the Texas-Mexico border, and that's pretty much what I'm thinking is going to happen here. It's going to come in very close to Brownsville, Texas. Before I get to that, I want to show you the intensity forecast for this system. This is tropicalatlantic.com, and the best performing model so far on the intensity is the Schiffer 5 model, and that's off by only about maybe 6 miles, 0.6 miles per hour, which is almost dead on so far. And this model actually takes it up to 76 knots at 48 hours. I guess this is considering it's going to take a little bit more of a track to the right and maybe come into South Texas. That would give it a little more time over water, which would allow it to get up to hurricane status. And that's about 85 miles an hour coming into South Texas. Again, that's if it stays out over water 48 hours. If it comes in earlier, it would be in 36 hours. It'd be 73 knots, which is still 83 miles an hour. If it comes in 24 hours, they're indicating 67 knots. So still, the Schiffer 5 model is showing this coming in as a hurricane in South Texas. So everybody needs to be aware of that up there in Brownsville. It'd be interesting to see how this plays out over the next 12 hours or so, especially when the recon gets in there and they find out what's happening there. Let's show you a loop of Hermine here. I mean, not Hermine. This is Gaston, east of the Leeward Islands. We've been watching this system closely. This was labeled as Tropical Storm Gaston a few days ago, and then they weakened it to a remnant low. And the system continues to cruise off to the west. And here's the latest center of circulation right back in here. And you can see there's banding going on. There's nice, the system is well developed, but there's no thunderstorm activity co-located with the center right now. It's been kind of blown off to the west here, and there's dry air being pulled into the system. There's dry air being pulled in like this. And there's an upper level low off to its west, which is causing a little bit of wind shear. So the system does not have the most ideal of situation for development. Now, some of the intensity models are indicating this is going to strengthen the hurricane. I personally think this is going to be just status quo as it moves into the greater Antilles here as a maybe tropical depression at most. Unless things change in the atmosphere in the next 24 to 36 hours, this should move in as a remnant lower tropical depression. We'll continue to monitor it, but right now it's just not doing very much. It's having trouble organizing and consolidating itself. All right, let's take a look at the East Atlantic. And these are two waves coming off the coast of Africa that we're really going to have to watch, because a lot of the models, especially the GFS, is indicating we're going to see a pretty strong hurricane develop out of these systems, maybe one or both of these. The indications are that it looks like it's this wave right here that is going to be the one that's going to become Igor and move across the Atlantic. But this wave here also looks pretty impressive, and it's a bigger system actually, and this could move across and develop. So conceivably, if both of these systems decide to go ahead and develop, we would have Igor and Julia out in the East Atlantic heading across, setting the stage for next week. The models are pretty intent on one of these systems becoming a hurricane moving across the Atlantic. So we have a long way to go yet the Cape Verde season, and we need to watch these two systems pretty closely. Here's that dry air I was talking about, wrapping into Gaston, rather. A lot of dry air being pulled in, and here's that upper level low over here causing southwest wind shear out in front of the system. It's kind of sandwiched in between the dry air and the upper level low. Not really a whole lot to work with here. Now look at this dry air moving into and down towards Hermine in the western Gulf of Mexico. If this system were to go more further north and then come in, say, maybe to Corpus Christi, I think some of the dry air might work in and disrupt development a little bit. But if this moves into Mexico, it's going to probably be a hurricane, especially if it moves into near Brownsville. So we'll have to watch that closely. Everything is ideal for development with that system. All right, here's the water vapor loop of the Atlantic Basin. And again, we have an upper level low spinning out in front of Gaston. And we have dry air over Texas as hurricane, what would be Hurricane Hermine here. Hopefully it'll move inland before it gains hurricane status. By the way, if this moves in, especially in Mexico, there won't be any hurricane warning show for this. It's Category 1. We only cover hurricanes in the Caribbean primarily and Mexico when they're Category 3s or greater. We generally don't, because there's a lot of sparsely populated area, the language problem, the communications, the whole 9 yards. It's not really worth doing hurricane warning shows for Caribbean systems unless they're intense or there's special circumstances. Again, we have an upper level low out in front of Gaston out here, and we have the dry air chasing this system in. So, again, I don't expect much out of this as it moves into the greater Antilles out here. So that's it for now. We'll be back with another update tomorrow on the situation in the Gulf of Mexico. Could we have a hurricane developing? We'll have to see when the recon gets out there. We'll have it up on the live feed at Hurricane City when they get there. That's it for now. Thank you again for visiting Hurricane City.